Okay, today we're going to be working on a 2008. It's a Toyota Highlander, and basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be replacing the brake pads, and we're going to be removing the rotors and replacing the rotors too, because they're so badly rusted they're non-serviceable. So we're going to be replacing these also. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a regular normal screwdriver and you put it in right through here until it comes out this side over here, right in that corner right there, and then you pry on the caliper until it stops moving. And what we're basically doing is we're resetting, pushing the piston back inside the bore, right down inside here. Hopefully you can see that the piston is pushed all the way back in as far as it can go. So, and the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our caliper slides back and forth nice and easily on these slide pins right here, because frequently these slide pins freeze up and it causes the brakes to stay applied and you prematurely wear out the brakes. In this case here, as you can see, they're sliding perfectly, so we know that the slide pins are good. We're going to lubricate them before you put it back together, but now we're going to take out these pins right here and we're going to continue with the brake job. So let's do that. We're going to remove them. Obviously it's counterclockwise to remove, clockwise to tighten. Sometimes when you try to take these out, as you turn it, you're going to see that this piece on the top here, so when you try to turn this and this whole thing spins as it does here, you got to get that out of there. So what you're going to do is you're going to get in here with just a wrench, and you put the wrench on here like this, and you hold this wrench and you rotate this at the same time, and you can unscrew it right out, but this will hold that from turning. So let me do that and I'll show you how that goes. So you hold the back wrench and then you pull it and you break it loose, and once you break it loose you can just take it out by hand. Same thing on the lower bolt, you can just take that out by hand also. And we're going to use these bolts again later, so we'll hold on to them. We're just going to relocate the caliper out of the way for now, because we're going to be taking this mounting bracket off here. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out those bolts in the back of the bracket that I showed you previously. I'll get this socket on here and I'll show you where it is. Underneath the vehicle, this bolt here and this bolt here. We're going to take those two out and then we're going to remove this entire bracket from the car. Alright? Sometimes these are a little bit tight. We'll just put this to the side for now. We'll come back to this in a minute and I'll show you what we're going to do with that. Now the next thing we're going to do is we've got to get this rotor off here. A lot of times getting the rotors off, you can take a hammer and just tap on it, and sometimes it'll pop off, which in this case it did pop off. But if it didn't, you could take a bolt and you could screw it right into here. There's a threaded hole in the back of the rotor here. You could screw this bolt into it there. You turn that bolt in and it'll push the rotor off the car. But in this case here, a couple of taps with the hammer and it came right off. So, you know, we're okay with that. Alright? And next thing we're going to do is just take the rotor off the car, obviously. And then we're going to get our replacement and we'll put it back on. And one thing you want to do too is the face of the rotor right in here. You want to make sure there's no significant rusting on there, otherwise you're going to put it together and you're going to wind up with a pulsating brake pedal. So make sure that this face is clean here. You can use a piece of sandpaper or a disc or scraper or anything to get that rust off. In this case it's nice and clean, so we don't have to worry about that. Alright, so let's grab the new parts and we'll put this job back together and get it out the door. Now that we have the mounting caliper off, the mounting bracket off the car, we're going to remove the brake pads and we're going to reinstall the brake pads. So we take this off, and on a lot of these cars here, before you put them all back together, you want to pull these pins. Hard to do with one hand, but I'm going to show you. You pull these pins out. Pull these pins out. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to put this right over here so you can see. You pull these out of here, and you put a little bit of lube, brake lube, on these here so it slides nice and easy in the bore, so that your brakes don't stay applied, that they come off when they're required to. And we're going to do the same thing on this one here. A little bit of lube on here like this, and then we put it back inside like that, and it slides nice and easy. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pry off these little metal pieces here, because we're going to replace them with new ones here. Always check to make sure there's not a significant amount of rust buildup inside this area right here, and in this case it looks pretty decent. And then we're going to replace the new ones. What you do is you just push them on like this, and they snap right down where they belong. Same thing on this one. You pry this off like that, and then you just replace this with the new one also. Again, checking for rust, make sure there's not a significant amount of rust in here, which is not. And we put this on here like this and just push it, and it snaps all the way in. Then what we do is you take a little bit of lube, brake lube, and we just grease up the area where the brake pad is going to slide on top and bottom like this. Alright, then we're going to take our brake pad, and we'll just put the brake pad into the caliper mounting bracket where it belongs. Make sure it slides nice and easy. Sometimes it'll fall out when you go to put it on, but you stick it in there anyway. Then we match up the brake pad that we're going to put back on there, because the brake pads have different locations for the sensors on it. And this one here is the one that came off, so this is the one we're going to put back on. And we'll just put it back in here, make sure this slides in there nice and easy, which it fits in there nice and loosely. And that's it. And then we're going to put this back on the car, and then we'll mount it up. But I just want to show you one thing. We're going to be replacing the rotor, obviously, but what I want to show you is on the old rotor, down inside here, you're going to see there's a little rubber plug. Push that out, because we're going to need to put that in. We're going to need to put this plug back into this rotor here, right here. That's the adjustment for the parking brake. So make sure you put that plug back in there. Alright, and then we just put the rotor back on the car the way it came off. Let me put this camera down. Alright, and we line this piece up here with the groove here, where it came off. Just like that. Push it all the way on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to reattach our mounting bracket, which you recall just goes on like this. You can slide it over the top like that. Then it puts your 2 bolts in the back that we previously took out, and screw them in by hand. You don't use a ratchet yet on it. Screw both of them in by hand before you tighten everything up. Tighten them down as tight as you can by hand first. Same thing on the bottom. Alright, then we'll grab our ratchet and tighten up the bolts pretty tight. Same thing on this one here. Nice and tight. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our caliper back on where we previously took it off. Sometimes what will happen is the caliper itself won't push over the top like this here. It doesn't fit. So in that case, what you have to do is you got to push this piston back in a little bit further. And the way you would do that is you put your brake pads into it and use a tool which actually recesses the piston, that little bit that is remaining out. And the tool basically fits in between the two I'll show you one second. I'll move my hand. The tool fits in here like this, and then it will push that piston that little bit back into the bore, enough to get it over the caliper. Alright, now that it's pushed in all the way, you're going to put the caliper back on. Make sure your brake line is not twisted, because if the brake line is twisted, you're going to have a problem. Slide this over the top like that, and line up your top and bottom bolts. Just catch them by hand. We're not going to tighten them tight yet. Put them in by hand first. And once you have them in, you screw them down as far as you can by hand. And then we can tighten up the bolts. Now remember, this piece here rotated before when we took it off, so you may have to hold it with a wrench, see how it goes, and tighten it down. Okay, it didn't turn at all, so that's nice and tight. Now we're going to tighten up the upper one, which is the one that was rotating before, but we'll see how it goes. It's not rotating now. Nice and tight. That's it. Alright, so let me just recap exactly what we've gotten done here now. We put our new rotor on. We made sure that that this little rubber cover is in here so moisture doesn't get inside there. The rotor's mounted. We mounted on our mounting bracket. We tightened both bolts in the back of it. We put our new caliper hardware in. We lubricated everything where the brake pads go. We mounted the caliper back on, making sure that our brake line was not twisted. It's nice and straight. And we tightened up the bolts. Now that's it. Next thing you're going to do is we're going to go to the opposite side of the car. We're going to change the brakes on the opposite side. And that's it. We'll be all set. Last thing you want to do is you want to get in the car before you start the car and drive away. Pump the brake pedal up. You want to reset this piston here up against the brake caliper. So it's normal for you to step on the brake and have the brake go to the floor, but after about 3 or 4 pumps of the brake pedal, it'll come right up on top, and you should be in good shape. That'll push this piston all the way down. It'll reduce this sliding back and forth here, and that's it. All right, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.